Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest in this series of podcasts with myself, Liam Carroll, of SYS Wealth and Financial Planners of Health for Your Wealth. And the idea, as we always say, of these podcasts is to give value to people by talking with experienced professionals who can give health to your wealth. And I'm delighted today to be joined by Paula Dagg. And Paula was a lifetime career banker, and her career was split roughly 50-50 between retail and corporate. And she experienced massive changes in the industry and decided the time was right for her to move into her new industry, which she will go through with you in a few minutes. She's qualified with an advanced diploma in leadership at Ulster University, as well as other diplomas, which she will go into in more detail. And with the development in science and technology, there's now an increased awareness of the importance of emotional intelligence in every part of our lives. And Paula is an expert in this area, and she'll go into it in more detail with us here. So Paula, thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today.
Delighted to be here, Liam. Thank you for asking me.
No problem, Paula, at all. Paula, I suppose the first question that we start with everybody is, obviously COVID is going on 14, 15, 16 months. How has it affected you, I suppose, both from a personal and professional viewpoint?
I suppose like everyone, COVID has had a huge impact on the whole family situation, and particularly on extended family, and not being able to meet people. And I have an elderly mother, and I've seen very little of her in the last year or so. That said, she's in a brilliant position, so we were very lucky in that regard. With regards to our own family dynamic, I have three young adult daughters now living at home, so that was, in looking back on it, I think we will look back at it as a good experience. COVID for me, I was in a transition stage in my life where I had left work and I was studying. So in that regard, the experience that I had been anticipating changed. It moved from attending college and attending courses to actually doing it all on Zoom calls. So Zoom calls became the new norm in our family. I have my eldest lassie is the manager of a gym, so we had gym classes. We had one-to-one calls. We had all of that going on, and the other two girls, have part-time jobs and are at college. So lots of lectures and I was at college. So yes, so it was constant. Who's where, what's what, who's the priority. If everything is to go pear-shaped, who needs to get priority today. So there was a lot of juggling in that way, but it was all positive, and because everyone was busy, I think we worked well. So it was, I think we look back and say, do you know what, it was okay.
But as they say, if you want something done, Paula, ask a busy person, isn't that what they say? But
something like that, I think, yes. But we managed and we worked well. And my husband is frontline, so he was out to work every day, and that in itself we considered was a good thing, because it worked well for his personality to be out. So it all worked well.
And as I kind of touched on at the start, you've had a fantastic career in the banking sector over a long number of years. And I suppose you developed in your new career a 3-step program teaching emotional intelligence skills and self-awareness. And I had a chat with you myself recently, Paul, as well. And I found it a fantastic benefit, I have to say. But maybe you could just give us some more information. You have a 3-step approach, isn't that correct, Paul? And just more information on how that works.
Yes, it is. I suppose it's really to respect that we're all in the same place, doing the same thing, so your colleague is sitting beside you, and your manager, your leader, whatever else, we all have a common goal, when we're working together. However, we all have a different set of stuff, and I call it stuff because baggage seems heavy, and baggage can be, it can be negative. Whereas we all have stuff. It's stuff that someone said to us that we'd be never any good, or, some throwaway comment. But when we're having a bad day, that's what comes up for us.
Yeah.
Oh, such and such said I'd never be any good. And you know what? I'm not any good. That's what runs through your mind. But what I do, and my job, is to listen to you And I will invariably, find that you had a massive learning out of that negative thing, because on a good day, you will have said, I'll prove that person wrong. I will, I've achieved this, I've achieved that. But it's bringing it to the forefront that, do you know what? You've all this going on. You are, through this adversity, or through that, you prove to yourself that you can achieve, and you've achieved, and look at you now. So it's shining a light and showing that you are this amazing person that sits at the desk, and great credit to you. And to be very, to bring it, that it becomes your knowing that you are this amazing person. Because as humans, we're actually primed for negativity, we're primed for survival. So it's very important that we actually have to work and focus on the positives. So by virtue of being primed for negativity, we say it's human nature. It is, because you're 5 times more likely to have a negative thought than a positive thought.
It's very interesting, Paula. And you sent me on a couple of very interesting bits just when we were getting prepared for this. And one thing that kind of stood out for me was that you've experience in managing a team and a portfolio of clients, and that you basically have now learned skills that would have been extremely useful for you in your previous life. So it would have been great if Paula was nearly coaching Paula at the time. Wouldn't that be fair to say?
Exactly. Now, I would have been considered a very good people person at the time.
Yeah.
But now I've gone away and I've really researched the science and got the know-how to manage situations, because it's all very well having it in theory. But when you're faced with a situation, the second part of the process is it's dealing with the now. So it's what's happening now. So you have a situation today. So now I have the skills and the techniques to actually deliver to you. Well, if you're faced with that situation, take time, take stock, just, notice if it's your stuff. So you're noticing your reaction to it, and then you're dealing with your reaction first before you then respond to the other person. So there's all these amazing set of tools, and it's knowing when and how to use them. And when you work like that, you have an aerial view, and you're by knowing yourself and being aware of yourself, what your triggers are, what irritates you, you recognize, well, actually, that's not them, that's me. Then you respond differently. So it's very, very, very important to have those skills. And I really wish I did have those skills at the time. I had them more honed at the time.
It's funny the way it goes, isn't it? But
yes.
It really is. Yeah, exactly. So, Paula, I think the space you're in, I think, is vital for people at the moment, isn't it? With people coming out of COVID and nearly getting used to the new norm and what way things are going to be. But I suppose, using your experience between your old professional life and your new professional life, what nuggets of information would you give to people, or advice, Paula, would you give to people coming out of the COVID now?
It certainly has created a space for people to review their lives and review how they've been living their lives. And now, there's that step back in, and some people are more ready than others. I think it's a very important time to review your values. If you're self-employed, to have a look at your business plan, see, is it still aligned? Is it still where you want to go? Is it still, what you want to do? Do you want to modify it? How can you go about modifying it? And if you're in employment, I think, again, it's a very important time to look at your personal development plan. Be very aware of where you are in relation to what the expectation is of your employer, so that you get very clear what the agreements are, review how you're feeling and what you'd like to achieve. And then when you're clear on it, and most people would say they know what they don't want, but they can't decide what they do want. It's very important to figure out what's your vision of the best life for you. And within that piece, there's a really good tool, which is needs, wants, and wishes. So, most of us need to work. So I need to get transport to get to work. I have transport available to me, but I'd like a car. So I want a car, but I really wish for a top of the range Land Rover. So it's getting everything into perspective. So it's about aligning, taking time out to, where reviewing your PDP, reviewing all of that to say, what was the agreement? Where do I sit now? And how can I negotiate? But be very clear in what it is that works for you, but also with due consideration to your employer.
I think, Paula, having spoken to you as well, and even after listening to more of your fascinating insights there, like that people could do with having a chat with you, and I think they'll get huge perspective on. And I think as well, my own goals slightly realigned after having a chat with you as well, and nearly put me on a path, I think, as well. So it was fantastic, and thank you very much for that. You're very experienced, Paula. I suppose again, slightly the same question, but slightly different. But using your own, I suppose, professional background, any tips that are totally underused? So anything you could give, maybe a nugget that is really underused by people in the industry outside of general advice. Does that make sense if I explain that question okay?
Yeah, I think so. The whole piece of emotional intelligence and the competencies, when you're applying for a job, people talk about your interpersonal skills and how do you lead a team?
Yeah.
And, we come up with something, but the reality is, when faced with a difficult situation with a work colleague or in that situation, very few of us actually are well equipped to take on. And as a result, I think we tend to avoid, we tend to, do a lot of workarounds. Whereas when and it is creeping in, it definitely is becoming more mainstream, I think, in the last 2 to 3 years. And I think this particular time will push it forward again, that the importance of knowing what's going on for you. So when that situation arises, that take time out, talk to the person that you feel you have an instinct that there's something not okay with them, and really just as part of your leadership or your management or your colleague, just give that colleague the space to share if they need to, and a space of non-judgment, and in a place of trust where they feel that they're not going to be in any way made to feel they can't cope, or in any way that it's going to impact on their career. That it's just creating that safe space to allow them that window of time to release just what's happening with them, because invariably I'm a great believer that everything can be sorted. It just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of creation space for the person to unravel what's going on for them.
Yeah, no, fascinating insights, Paul. I think, yeah, we'll have to get you writing that book anyway, shortly, I think, anyway. As you know, Paula, we're involved in the financial services industry, as you were yourself for a number of years, of course. So what product in that industry, in your experience, be it personal or professional, do you feel is underused and that you would highly recommend for people of any age maybe to have a look at?
Well, I think as a previous person that you interviewed talked about pensions, and pensions are so important. They're a hard sell when someone is young, but I think they're just such an important part of your future planning.
Yeah.
Another very important one that I did see the benefit of, because I remember I sold the policy, but I also seen the policy being utilized, and that's critical illness. Yeah. I think it's a double-edged sword. This particular person at the time was starting out and had a small property portfolio, and as part of the mortgage protection, there was it built into a critical illness. Sometime later, he got very ill, and he was able to draw down on the policy. And I remember at the time saying to him, when you're sick, it's very hard to focus on getting well when you have financial worries.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're sick and at least your finances are taken care of, at least you can focus on getting better.
Yeah.
And that was one, I seen the benefit of that. And, it's when you're selling it at the time, you don't ever want it to happen.
Of course not. Yeah.
You don't want it for anyone. But all of these things are peace of mind.
Yeah. It's funny, Paula, even in your previous occupation, you were the product you were selling was a peace of mind product, and now in your current industry there's a lot of peace of mind element as well. Like, so it's funny how they, even though they're totally different industries, how they can nearly collaborate across, isn't it?
Definitely.
Just the last real question you have, Paula, and you're nearly out of trouble then. The best bit of advice you ever got, be it from maybe a parent or a work colleague, or just the best bit of advice that you got that stuck with you over the years?
Well, actually, the best piece of advice I ever got was, would you believe it, on a Facebook feed. And it really is what started me on the journey of self-awareness. And it was called a golden rule. And it essentially said, respect everyone's model of the world. And up until that time, I think I must have been sleepwalking. But anyway, I understood that we pretty much all had the same values, that, you got your education, you went to work, you worked hard, you provided for your family, and that you did your best for your family, your community, and all of those. But not everyone's values are the same. And so that was such a wake-up call for me. And it actually took me out of a not so good space. So it's really vitally important, and it's a rule I live by every single day. And it has made a huge difference. It has been the one thing that has made such a massive difference to my life.
That's fantastic, Paula. Yeah, fantastic. Great advice, and I think people could do a lot worse than living by it to a certain extent anyway. Yeah, definitely. You're available, Paula, to meet people by Zoom or coming into the face-to-face time. Where exactly are you based, Paula?
I'm based in Kildare.
Kildare, yeah. In case I said Dublin, I get in right trouble altogether, but you're based in Kildare.
Yes.
And you're available for face-to-face and one-to-one consultations.
Yes.
And of course, Zoom is ongoing as well. And of course, you're involved in the Midwest mentoring as well, which is a lot of people from all over the country involved. And
delighted to be part of it.
Yeah. And you're a great part of it. But I think that people could do an awful lot worse than Paula booking in a one-to-one call with you and send you a message. We'll put up all your contact details up at the end of this, on the end of this slide. It'll be at the start of it as well. Apologies, I should have said that.
Great.
And if anybody wants to contact Paul, I'd highly recommend it. I've done a couple of one-to-ones with her myself and highly recommend it. And I know one or two other people who've done them and found her absolutely fantastic. Non-judgmental and very much on the level, and she's a real people person and on a great level. So Paula, details will be there to finish. Paula, thank you very much for taking the time out to join us this morning, and I enjoyed it. And for everybody else, thank you very much for listening, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you very much.
Liam, thank you very much for having me.